and welcome to a brand new series of the Airshow. I'm Alain De Cadenet, and over the next 6 weeks, the team and I will be your passport to the world of aviation.
Tonight, we begin with an exclusive, the Royal Navy's Thursday War. We fly search and rescue in the French Alps. See how a school leaver becomes an airline pilot in just 18 months. And the Airshow offices become an international airport as we host television's first virtual fly-in.
We promised you an exclusive, and this is it. I'm flying on board the most realistic multi-threat, multi-warfare training exercise in the world.
It was the Falklands War that first brought home the awesome power of anti-ship missiles when HMS Sheffield was destroyed by 2 air-launched Exocets. To train against similar missile attack, the Royal Navy has designed the most testing exercise of its kind in the world. Codenamed the Thursday War, jet fighters are used to simulate missile attacks. We joined a flotilla of 6 NATO ships stationed in the Channel off Plymouth.
For today's exercise, I'm on board the Force Air Defence ship, HMS Liverpool, a Type 42 destroyer. Now, it's all pretty quiet at the moment, but they know that in a short while, there's an air attack coming in from somewhere.
Which is where these guys come in, the Dassault Falcon 20 jets of FR Aviation.
To test the defences of the ships, a formation of 3 Falcons and a Hawk fighter will attack the flotilla. As electronics on board the Falcons attempt to jam the ship's radar, the Hawk simulates a missile by dropping low level and skimming over the sea at 500 knots.
Now, how authentic is this exercise?
Extremely. It's one of the most realistic training environments, I think, in the world. It's very good for the new, inexperienced people, aged 18, coming straight out of school, to be suddenly thrown into a combat environment, which we try and make as realistic as possible.
While the Hawks prepared to leave from Culdrose, I joined the Falcon briefing at Bournemouth.
The orientation for this afternoon, we have Portland up here, start point here. The ships should be over in this region, in the Plymouth exercise areas, and we will come down to a gate some 65 miles away from the ship and releasing the Hawks at 40 miles for their descent and running at low level to simulate the Exocet missile.
Briefing over, it was time to go to war.
Mike, it's quite demanding on you, this mission, isn't it?
It can be. We're fortunate today that the weather's nice, but if we add bad weather to this mission with the number of aircraft in the sky and the number of targets we have to engage on the surface, the ship targets, then yes, you're quite right, it can get pretty lively.
About 10 minutes out of Bournemouth, we rendezvoused with the Hawk and headed for the 60-mile gate.
Now, on board the Falcon 20 is all the electronic wizardry and gizmos to fake an attack on the ships. When they launch a guided missile, that Hawk takes off like a scalded cat and goes straight for the target ship.
Meanwhile, down at sea level, things were hotting up.
Here in the ops room on board Liverpool, they're at alert state yellow. It's a heightened state. They know there's something out there, but they haven't positively identified an attack yet. As soon as they do, it's alert state red and all action.
Unknown aircraft. This is a British warship 92. I request you turn away immediately. If you continue to fly an attack profile, I may be forced to take defensive action.
Crossing the Z boundary, sir. 1 is armed, sir.
Then at 40 miles from the target, the Hawk was launched.
Roger, disregard. 2 lanes into Mediterranean waters. Take the dirty rat-fink. Raid continues to grow, sir, with 17 miles to Bodinian waters.
Steer left to starboard. Starboard, dear left side.
God, it's frightening. Thank heavens they haven't got real bullets.
In the first attack against Liverpool, the Hawk/Exocet was deemed to have been shot down by a Sea Dart missile.
You've had experience of the real thing in the Gulf. I mean, how close is it to that?
It's very realistic. We in Gloucester came through here in summer of 1990 and were trained very well. Then went out to the Gulf to Desert Storm, and when a missile was actually fired against the task group, my team responded absolutely as they would do in a Thursday war here at Plymouth and shot it down. 90 seconds, detection to destruction.
And after the Liverpool, we still had 3 runs to do.
Absolutely fantastic. The Royal Navy's pilots are rightly considered to be some of the best in the world. It takes a lot of skill to land a Lynx like this on a tiny platform bobbing around in the ocean. But during the winter, it was the skill of the Alpine search and rescue pilots that caught the headlines with that series of tragic avalanches.
These pictures, filmed for the BBC this morning, show for the first time the scale of the disaster unfolding here in the Alps.
The massive helicopter rescue operation was the biggest ever and undoubtedly saved many lives. One of the helicopter operators is based at Courchevel in the French Alps. The Second Aviation Français is run by Eric Fressinet.
We operate for mountain rescue on all the French Alps, and last year we did 1,800 rescue flights during the winter, and we should do probably about the same thing this winter. SAF has been engaged in mountain rescue since 20 years this winter, and it was started by my father, who was a passionate man and always felt he was better in the air than on the ground.
The courage and skill of these Alpine pilots is legendary. Their understanding of their machines and the environment is matched only by their knowledge of the very mountains themselves. In the early days, most accidents were likely to be fatal, and rescue operations usually took several days of hard physical work. Today, the mountain guides still relate many stories of human bravery and tragedy. An experienced mountain guide himself, Jacques Fouquet is now chief pilot.
There is not a school to train to fly in mountain. And at the beginning you can't make rescues. It's necessary before to have a long experience, before to make your first rescue. We fly with 1 hour endurance, no more. Like that, we are not too heavy. If we are too heavy, it's a problem to land on a little, very little place. We have to be very light.
Operating both Squirrel and Bell helicopters, the service is now regarded as one of the essential services, alongside fire, police and ambulance.
We have to be careful for the wind, for the tailwind. When we fly under the top of the mountain, under the wind, we call that in French rotors.
Ici au sol, il est prêt. Ok, bon, deux encore dans la chute.
Careful when there is a poor visibility, but we are obliged to see the ground when we fly, all the time. In each team, there is a rescue man, there is a mechanical, and there is a doctor. The mechanical is here to winch, and is here for the safety.
In this top holiday resort, the reality is that most accidents happen on the ski slopes themselves. Casualties are usually flown direct to the nearest hospital at Moutier. And the cost? Well, it's mandatory in France that this is met by the town, who pay for it with the insurance that you're charged on your ski pass.
My first job was in mountain, and I want to stay. I don't want to fly in another place than in mountain.
The extraordinary airmen of the mountains. What a fantastic job they do.
With air travel set to double during the next 12 years, there's pressure on to find the pilots to fly the aircraft. British Airways alone will turn out 300 pilots in the next 2 years.
A glass of champagne can help cure flying jitters, but for me the most soothing thought is the knowledge that the people up there in the cockpit, well, they're a highly trained breed apart. From here in row 1, that's about 10 feet, but surely that journey from passenger to pilot must be the longest and most arduous in aviation. Well, actually, no. British Airways can take a teenager fresh out of school and turn them into a flying officer in under 2 years. I think I need a drink.
And this is what it's all about. This is the newest intake of 42 fresh-faced first officers, just a fraction of the 1,000 commercial pilots trained each year in the UK. This lot are also selected from thousands of applicants, and they've undergone intensive training. They really are the chosen few.
Captain Douglas, you're very involved in training and selection. What kind of qualities are you looking for in potential pilots?
Oh dear, that's a very big question indeed. What we need are people who quite clearly have got the physical aptitude to be able to handle the aeroplane, which is a traditional skill that people have been looking for a very long time. The big change in British Airways in recent years is that we're now looking for a much broader range of life skills, because this is very much more a managerial task than it is a technical task. So we're looking for people with great leadership and good team skills and so on.
Rob, are you a product of the BA training scheme?
Yes, indeed. I graduated April '92 from Prestwick, Scotland, and so I've actually been in the airline since then.
Was it a very rigorous process?
Well, it was intense. As long as you put the effort in at the right time and kept yourself going, and with a good group of people around you, with instructors, and your group of student pilots, it all works out fine.
What was it like the first time you actually got control of a jet?
Well, it's highly exciting, I can tell you. It's you have the biggest grin on your face ever, because it's what you waited for. So when you taxi out of London, which was for me on this aircraft, an Airbus, what we call, you go out the cul-de-sac and see all these line up of other planes ready to go. It's very, very exciting.
That process, from raw recruit to the person your children want to watch at work in the cockpit, begins here at Cranebank. 16 cadets assemble with their families to learn a little of airline life. The mums and dads look dutifully proud.
Oh, I'm thrilled to bits. He's wanted to fly since he could just about talk.
It's something he's been wanting to do for years.
This really is a dream come true for him, and lovely.
Fantastic opportunity. Brilliant.
Everyone's given the full tour, including a brief night flight in a jumbo simulator.
Hi, welcome. Come in.
Waiting for them there is First Officer Paula Alsop, a long-haul veteran and just one of the pilots they're introduced to. Paula's part of the training team at the moment, while she's expecting a baby. But a demonstration to the excited gathering may well represent the last time these cadets see a simulator as merely observers. This is their place of work.
You're going to Oxford. It's one of 2 flying.
The new arrivals are then addressed by various members of pilot management to welcome them, but to make sure that they know what British Airways expects in return for the £1.5 million they're about to spend on their training. It must be daunting.
They obviously trust their selection process to have picked me because I can do it, and hopefully I will be able to.
I'm not looking forward to the exams at all, but who does, you know? But eventually they'll be okay.
I really can't imagine how it's going to feel the first time I board the aircraft. It's just on the way here today, watching them sort of come into land, and it's quite frightening to think I might be there in a year and a half. But you've got to believe that if the company's got trust in you, then they obviously think you're good enough, so you must be good enough.
So it's this group of frighteningly young-looking recruits, aged from 19 to 26, who'll soon be flying you and I in the airliners of the new millennium. Their training starts here at Oxford, but it's going to be a little while before they even get near an aircraft.
The test then. You are to move the radioactive equipment, fire extinguisher, into the protective container, the dustbin. And from the time that you start your briefing with your team, you've got 25 minutes to complete the task.
Right, you'll gather around me so you can hear what I've got to say. Does somebody have a good watch to start with?
Push the bin next to it with a log.
Some kind of bipod, so you got some kind of V on top.
Very simply, without using the pulley devices and whatnot, lift it up and place it in.
You may think that throwing logs and dustbins around has little relevance to piloting modern jets, but you'd be wrong, apparently. And they'll be taught relentlessly for the next 18 months. In the cockpit, you're a vital part of a team. They're unlikely to be faced with such a task during their flying careers, but it's good to know that if they were, they'd know exactly what to do.
Push, lift left, push, there we go. Push. Hey! Just in time.
Most modern aeroplanes...
Once that's in the can, it's into 4 weeks of ground school, relentless classroom lectures covering engineering, navigation, aerodynamics, meteorology, air law. The list is seemingly endless. Over the next 6 weeks, the Airshow will be following British Airways cadets as they go through all the stages of training in an attempt to gain their coveted wings. They'll soon be undergoing extensive flying, starting on single-engined aircraft before moving on to the complications of twin flying, and then the toughest test of them all, the infamous instrument rating. Having negotiated this and many other exams, they move on to the big jets, training first on simulators and then the most memorable event in their flying careers, the first passenger flight.
To sell new aircraft, passenger jet manufacturers have to make each new model 10 to 15% more efficient than its predecessor. Airframes, engines and avionics are constantly being redesigned. By comparison, the light aircraft industry has been stuck in a time warp, only making minor upgrades to designs that can date back 40 years.
But the designers of this aircraft have made more than just a few simple changes. In fact, although it was only certified late last year, they've already sold over 300, which implies to me that there's something rather special about it.
5 years ago, Cirrus, a company best known for their kit planes, began to redesign the light aircraft. They wanted to produce a revolutionary plane, and they started with the airframe. By using fiberglass, they could create shapes impossible to manufacture from aluminium. It also reduced the number of rivets and seams whilst increasing strength.
They succeeded in creating a low-drag aircraft and in meeting their performance goal of a 160-knot cruise speed, and that was previously unheard of in a 200-horsepower fixed-gear aircraft.
There you go, and we're airborne.
And the revolution doesn't stop there. I got the chance to fly the SR20 to take a look at the other advances.
This must be the light aviation equivalent of the A320 Airbus. When that was first introduced, it was the only passenger aircraft to have a side stick and to be controlled by electrical impulses rather than by rods and cables. This aircraft's got the side stick, but it's not fly-by-wire, it's conventional, and it's a dream to fly.
And I did actually love the side stick, even though it was the first time I'd used one. My co-pilot Glenn Nylander, also a fast jet pilot, is no stranger to sophisticated avionics.
What I'm quite interested in, which is very unfamiliar to me, is this huge display here.
We call it a multi-function display, and that's because it can really do lots of different things. So not only does it give you total situational awareness, where am I in the United States? In addition to this, if we want to go to checklist, we want to do the landing check. Mixture red, flaps down 50%. It can give the speeds. This will be needed to change a little bit, and we'll trim as necessary. Landing check is complete.
Saves you having something on your knee getting in the way.
Exactly.
Yeah. All this technology alone is fantastic, but this aircraft has something else that no other aircraft has. Something that would normally be seen strapped to somebody's back.
Well, it works for pilots and passengers, so why not for a whole aeroplane? The parachute was the only feature that I wasn't able to test out, because whilst it's designed to save the passengers, the aeroplane might not be as lucky. In this crash test, the prototype was reduced to scrap, but the dummies in the cabin seats remained intact.
What occasion would you use such a parachute?
Any time where you are in a situation that you don't think you can recover. For instance, an engine failure in a mountainous terrain would be a prime example of when you'd want to use the parachute. If I can't find a suitable landing field, I'm going to pull the parachute and I'm going to sink to the ground safely.
So why is this the first plane to incorporate a parachute? The answer is cost. At least 10% of this aircraft's price tag of £170,000 is down to the parachute. But that seems a small price to pay for a feature that could save your life.
So at last, private pilots are enjoying the benefits of computers. But it's not just in the air that computers are pushing flying to new limits.
Doubtless this view is very familiar to you. It's BBC Television Centre. And just over there, that big silver building, is White City, home to the Airshow offices. But very soon this whole area is going to look quite different. We're going to replace Wood Lane with a living, working runway. We're going to do this without concrete, bulldozers, or even a hint of tarmac. How, you might ask? Quite simply. We're going to do the whole thing virtually. We've taken the world's best-selling flight simulator program and added our own specially designed airport. Wood Lane and the A40 have become runways and White City a terminal. Today, via the internet, we're inviting computer aviators to fly in. I'm now in the White City building. Behind me is Television Centre, and before me, the people and technology that are making this whole thing possible this afternoon. The computers we're using today can be bought at any high street store. They've got quite a large amount of memory and 3D cards, but apart from that, they're reasonably cheap. The magic comes from the modems. We're using normal modems to connect up 6 machines, one of which is playing host. The beauty is, of course, that anyone else, anywhere on the planet, can use the internet to get involved too. Microsoft Flight Simulator is the benchmark for home computer aviation, and it's that's enabling me to taxi the aircraft in the centre of your screens right now. Let's face it, how else could I taxi past the Television Centre and watch myself doing it? But what's most exciting about home simulation is that you no longer need to do it on your own. Thanks to the internet, you can fly in formation with a whole number of other pilots. But with all this traffic expected in the skies above the BBC, we needed the help of an experienced virtual flyer. So the job of cyber traffic controller went to flight sim guru, Bob Sidwick.
We're going to have half a dozen people actually flying here at the Television Centre, and we're going to have people dropping in to fly as well.
And it doesn't matter where they are, they could be anywhere in the world?
They can be literally anywhere in the world, but they'll appear on your screen and you'll appear on their screen.
This has got to be the first time that a virtual flying has ever been seen on British television, is that right?
It's certainly the first time that anybody's landed on the runway at White City.
Absolutely brilliant. So let's get back to basics. Bob and I are connected together. We each have a computer, a modem and a phone line, and for the next hour at least, we are the Red Arrows.
Okay, you're rolling level.
Oh, beautiful. Look at that. Here you go, White City with the cloud. There's your blow.
I see you behind me, coming up behind.
I'm right on your tail, Bob. You're a bit juddery, but hey, that's showbiz. With our connection working, it's time to welcome from the comfort of his own home, Jean-Luc Neal, who flies for a virtual airline called Noble Air.
Noble Air is virtually the world's favourite airline. It's a group of people who have joined together to make the experience of flying a little more realistic. They can come along, fly routes for the airline which are based on real routes from British Airways. It's not just flying from A to B, you fly for a purpose.
Believe it or not, here comes Noble Air's very own 747 attempting to do a quite hairy landing. This, of course, is Wood Lane. Hopefully he'll make it. He's come an awful long way today, but he's attempting to pull off the impossible right now. Looking pretty good to me. Looking pretty good to me. Is there going to be a bounce? No, look at that, through the internet. Absolutely amazing. Touches down without even a hint of a bounce. Staggering. Two hours in, and loads more armchair pilots have joined us in a whole range of different aircraft. Representing the Battle of Britain memorial flights of the Lancaster Hurricane and Spitfire. There's the Airshow's own bizjet, and me in a Hawk.
Set speed to 10, flaps 1. Selected.
There's actually 6 people flying together right now. Bob's out there on the outside there. Just below Show's aircraft now is Ted. He's on long finals. The Airshow there is coming in on short finals. We should be able to see him land pretty soon. Aviva is, of course, personing the Lancaster. And finally, there's me, stuck in my Hawk jet with a puncher. Marvellous. Well, this is all pretty impressive, but there's even better to come. Here's a quick taste of the future of virtual flying. With products like Fly and Flight Sim 2000 on the horizon, fully textured graphics and totally realistic flight dynamics are just around the corner. Well, there's no doubt in it. If you're a genuine aviation enthusiast, your chances of sitting in the driving seat of a Concorde are similar to my chances of appearing in the next England squad. No, flight simulation gives you the opportunity to not only fly some fantastic aeroplanes, but do it with a load of mates. So hopefully I can finish a perfect afternoon by pulling off this landing.
Over 20 million people now share flying through the home computer. But for the very best seat in the house, stay with us on the Airshow. That's it for tonight's Airshow. See you next week. And in our next programme, the largest gathering of Mustangs since the Korean War.
Outrageous!
Julian is the first civilian to fly the Navy's newest helicopter. And our pilot trainees begin their flying in Arizona.
Coming up now on BBC2, Quentin Wilson and Kate Humble with the new series of Top Gear.